been talking about this for over the past couple of videos where, like I said, if people don't unanimously rise up and push back against the local government, as they start to become more emboldened, will just continue to try to dictate people's lives more and more, regardless of facts, regardless of the numbers. As I spoke of the other day, out of the 23,000 hospital beds here located in New York, only 648 were dedicated to the virus, right? So that's less than 3%. It's about 2.8% out of all the beds, out of all the hospital beds here located in New York, are dedicated to the virus. But of course, that's not enough for Governor Cuomo. Governor Cuomo says local governments have not done an effective job of enforcement in these hotspot zip codes. New York State will be doing aggressive enforcement starting tomorrow. And this is from today. This is Sunday. As we saw with bars and restaurants, when the state initiated enforcement actions, compliance greatly increased. However, the state can't take over effective enforcement for every jurisdiction. If a local jurisdiction cannot or will not perform effective enforcement of violating entities, notify the state and we will close all businesses, activities, and hotspots where local governments can't do compliance. As he said, if they cannot or they will not, right? If the local government is like, we're not going to enforce what's going on because the numbers don't show it, because we're not going to sacrifice our economy here locally, well, then he encourages you basically to snitch to the state, and the state will come in and swoop in and will basically shut down all the businesses in that area. So now it compromises your ability to feed your families and, of course, to feed yourself, to be able to, basically keep your employees employed. And Governor Cuomo goes on to say, I'm concerned about the lack of testing in schools. If the localities do not do testing immediately in the schools in those areas, the state will close them immediately. This is basically his answer to any sort of a situation. If the people aren't going to comply, not because people are becoming sick and the hospitals are becoming overrun, but just because. If the numbers, again, it's all about the numbers. It's all about the numbers. It's not about the hospitalizations. We see the goalpost, of course, continuing to be moved further and further back. Before it was to flatten the curve, and then from flatten the curve, it was to slow the spread. From slow the spread, it's wear a mask. Now it's if the numbers aren't where I want them to be, we're going to shut it all down. And of course, him and the people who work for him will continue to get paid, because he's an overpaid state worker, but you might not be, because he chooses to shut down the business that you work at, or he chooses to shut down your business. Now your ability to work and to feed your family becomes compromised. Why? Because people are getting sick? No, just because people, of course, are testing positive. And then he goes on to say that, of course, he's more than willing to shut down the school, so that now the people who work at those schools can't keep and maintain their job, and of course your ability to educate your children then becomes compromised. We all want schools to reopen. If they can reopen safely, I have assured the parents of this state that I would not send my child to a school that I didn't know was safe. Without testing, we can't assure parents and teachers of the safety of that school. And so then now we have fear-mongering, right? It's the fear-mongering to parents, fear-mongering to the teachers, fear-mongering to kids, who are literally the lowest in terms of getting sick, becoming hospitalized, and of course, spreading the virus. And then the worst part is what you actually see is you actually start to see people within the thread start talking about, oh, well, in my particular area, you need to come out here and police this area, or this business that I went to was a little too crowded for my liking, or these particular people. Right? And that's what we're seeing locally with the Hasidic Jews here in Brooklyn. The Hasidic Jews, of course, have been singled out, especially over the past couple of months, basically for quote unquote spreading the virus. And a lot of this stuff actually happened during periods in Nazi Germany. During times of Nazi Germany, of course, the Jews were singled out for whatever reason. It's just hate. Hate is hate. Whatever excuse you want to utilize for that hate. And of course, in this instance, the virus is being utilized to, of course, attract hate to a particular group of people namely the Hasidic Jews. And this is exactly what happens. If I've actually, you go through the comments in this thread, people start talking about the Hasidic Jews in Brooklyn, how we need to shut them down, how we need to shut down their businesses. And this is what happened, of course, during times in Nazi Germany, where there were certain Germans who realized that what was going on was morally wrong, regardless of what the law says about what the law is towards these individuals. It was immoral. It's the wrong thing to do. There was no reason to sit here and to do all these things that were hateful. And of course, we're seeing the exact same thing here in New York, where we're seeing a hate towards one group over the others, because these groups are now compromising my ability to go to work. Cuomo says, well, if these groups don't start acting like the rest of you and become non-compliant, well, then we're going to shut you down, right? So then it puts you against these other individuals. And this is how friction between groups within the community starts. And this is, of course, is how racism starts. And of course, Governor Cuomo, of course, is more than happy to pit New Yorkers against fellow New Yorkers. And this is really disgusting. This is typically what you would see of a dictator, in a totalitarian government, where an individual rises to power and people just comply. No matter what they do, they become afraid because they don't want to be singled out. They don't want their business to be singled out. They don't want their family to be singled out. They don't want their church group or whatever group that they're affiliated with to be singled out by those in positions of authority. So people become fearful and they just comply out of fear.
To ensure the security and continuing stability, the Republic will be reorganized into the first galactic empire for a safe and secure society.
So this is how liberty dies, with thunderous applause.